Hey everybody, I'm really excited about tonight's dinner. So I'm doing my favorite salmon recipe. And for this recipe, you remove the skin and bake it in the oven. And you have this really delicious crispy salmon skin chip. And so what you do is you just make an incision all the way down to the skin. And then you just glide right along the skin. And so you keep your knife angled downward and you just kind of feel it with your fingers, but be careful not to cut your fingers. You have to be really careful about that. And you just want to keep the skin held tight and the meat held tight, and that way your knife can just really glide really smoothly right along the edge of the skin and the meat. And this takes some practice. It's not going to be an easy thing to do right off. And you can sometimes have your butcher or your fishmonger do this for you. Just ask them to remove the skin, but that you want to keep it. But if they can't, just give it a try. I mean, it's not too hard to learn once you've done it a few times. But it just takes a little bit of practice. So this salmon, this was a piece that I had in my freezer. So what I usually do is when salmon's in season, I will get a big fillet of it when it goes on sale and just cut it into portions like this and put it in my freezer. And I'll leave the skin on for this reason, but you don't have to. Sometimes leaving the skin on can make it a little bit fishier, so if you want to have it removed before you bring it home, just ask them to do that and just you'll have some salmon to cook. But I love, the skin has a lot of nutrients. It has a lot of those omega-3 oils that are so good for us, and so I really try to incorporate it as much as I can. But like I said, it can add some fishiness, so if you're not a big fan of that fishy flavor, don't worry about it. Alright, so we've got oops, I left a little bit of chunk on. A little chunk of meat there, so I'm going to give that to Allie. She loves it. Sushi grade. Okay, so I have my beautiful little piece of salmon here. And then my skin. So for the skin, what we're going to do is you're going to sandwich it in between some parchment paper with some olive oil and a little sprinkle of salt. And just put that in a baking dish with another either plate or something heavy that's flat to go on top of it. That way it'll keep it from curling up and you get this really beautiful flat skin chip at the end. So that's going to go into a preheated oven at 375 for about 30 minutes. Now I'm just going to go ahead and season my salmon fillet with just simple salt and pepper. This salmon dish, we're going to be making a sauce, and so I don't need to add too much flavor to the meat itself, just some simple seasoning so that it really elevates the flavor of the salmon. Now we're going to prepare for the sauce. So for the sauce, we're going to need 1 shallot and some garlic. So I'm going to show you how to cut a shallot. It's just how you would cut an onion, so the exact same thing. So just cut it in half through the root. That way all the layers will stay intact while you cut. And you just want to peel off that outer layer with the papery skin. And see me do that here. And then we're going to take our knife and just do a fan cut all the way from the root to the center of the front. And it's just along those lines that you can actually see when you're looking at an onion or a shallot. And we're just going to go all the way around the shallot, just like this. A shallot's in the same family as an onion or garlic, and it has a milder flavor than most onions, but it also kind of has a bit of a garlic hint. So it's really good. It's often used with seafood and in sauces in particular, just because it has a more mild flavor instead of that overwhelming onion flavor. So now that we've kind of done this fan cut all the way across, we're just going to do a very fine slice from the tip of the shallot all the way to the root. And so by doing this, we are ending up with this really fine dice that you get. So if you do this with an onion, it will have the same effect. It's actually a little bit better with an onion because I don't know if you noticed, but shallots have kind of multiple little orbs within them. They're not just a single circle with layers. They kind of like have little globules in them. But yeah, so we have this nice little dice here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the other half of the shallot, and then we will get started on cooking the salmon. And for the garlic, I'm just going to use this garlic that I've already minced up and I've been preserving in olive oil. So I'll just get a little spoon and take about a teaspoon out of there. That's about a clove of garlic. And so that's what I'll be using in my sauce tonight. So before we get started with the salmon, I'm going to go ahead and saute. This is just about a third of the shallots, and I'm going to add a little bit of garlic to this as well. And this is going to be for the green beans I decided to make as a side. This is kind of a last minute addition. So I just preheated my skillet here on medium heat with some avocado oil, and I added about a third of that shallot in. And then there I've got it's probably about a clove and a half, maybe 2 cloves worth of garlic that I've added. And we're just going to saute this up until it's translucent. And then we can add my already washed and trimmed green beans. Alright, these are looking good. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of vegetable stock to this. And normally I would cover this pan at this point and let them kind of steam saute, but I don't have a lid that actually fits this pan, so we're just going to let it go for a little bit. And I'm going to now season it with some salt and pepper and just cook them until they're a good doneness. And then you can take them off and place them into a dish, a heat-safe dish with a little bit of foil to cover them, and we'll get the salmon in the pan. Alright, so I gave the pan a little bit of a rinse, and we're just going to melt about 3 tablespoons of butter in this. So this is my Kerrygold butter that I got that I love. It is salted, but I recommend if you're a newbie to cooking, use unsalted. So we're just going to let this melt and put our salmon in with the seasoned side down, which was the side that didn't have the skin. Now we can go ahead and season the other side, so just simple salt and pepper once again. And we're just going to let this cook, and we want to let it get a little bit brown. And this is on medium heat. So this should only take, it shouldn't take very long, just a couple minutes or so. And just kind of check it and make sure that you don't break your fish as you check on it. This is looking really, really good and smelling so good too. Salmon is such a good fish for you. Like I said, all the omega-3s, it's good fats, good oils. It's a great source of protein, and it's one of the clean eating fish, so it's not a bottom feeder. It's not going to have all the crap. All right, let's go ahead and just take a look at this again and see. I think it's ready to flip. So kind of trying to stick a little bit. That's okay. There we go. Oh, that's perfect. See, look at that little golden brown that you get. So I'm just going to kind of scrape up the bits here just to make sure nothing sticks to the bottom to burn. Okay, so we're just going to let this cook for a little bit longer. You want to let the butter get a kind of nutty brown color. It's just going to give it a really good flavor, but make sure it doesn't burn. And while it finishes cooking, I'm going to get together my liquids that I need for the sauce. So you're supposed to use a dry white wine, 3/4 of a cup, but I don't have any white wine, so I'm not going to use that for just me tonight. So I'm adding just some more vegetable stock, and this is really just to deglaze the pan, and it does give it flavor, so if you have the white wine, use that, but if you don't worry about having to go out and buy a bottle just for cooking salmon. And then you're going to add the juice of half of a lemon. And if you have a really small lemon, you can add more, but I think one lemon is just half a lemon is fine. So just squeeze it like this through your hands so you don't get any seeds in your sauce. And then we will add in the shallots and garlic now, and you want to make sure that you add that around the salmon. Don't get it on top. You want to get it into the sauce. That way the sauce is really infused with the flavor. And so we'll just sprinkle these around, and we're going to go ahead and scrape up the pan a little bit. And we're going to let this cook for just a little while before we add in our last ingredient, which is heavy cream. And then we'll just let it kind of poach in the sauce for a minute. Alright, so I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. And you don't have, you could do half and half, or you could just do some milk or almond milk or whatever you want. I had this on hand from something else I made, so we're going to go ahead and use it. And we're going to season the sauce up with some salt and pepper. And this sauce, it's pretty obvious here. This is a lot of sauce for this one piece of salmon. This is supposed to be for about 3 times this amount of salmon. But again, this is just for me. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll freeze the extra of this sauce. And I can heat it up for whenever I make this again later. And I won't do the same exact cooking process, obviously. But I'll at least have some sauce that I can heat up and put on. And it'll be really good. So we're just going to let this poach for a second, and then we're going to get it plated up and ready to go. This fish is now done, and so we're just going to go ahead and plate it up. Here's our little bit of green beans. I just took a few of them out, and we're just going to grab the salmon out of the sauce here. Just cook it to whatever doneness you like. I like mine pretty underdone, so it didn't cook for very long. And just place it on top of the green beans there. And I'm going to let this sauce reduce just a little bit to let it kind of thicken up. And that'll just help to give it a really good smooth texture and make sure that the flavors are really developed. But I'm just going to do that not for very long because you don't want to burn the milk either. And also my fish will get cold. This looks absolutely perfect and smells amazing too. So I'm going to go ahead and just spoon some of this over the fish, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Here we are, and look at this beautiful plate here. Here's my crispy salmon skin chip that I took out of the oven. Oh, just so beautiful. It's perfectly crisp, seasoned with some salt. It tastes absolutely amazing. And look at this salmon, just perfectly done. And with those shallots and garlic, oh, this is so good. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you try this, let me know. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon.